Hi BookTube, how are you doing? My name is Juan. I am just one reader and I've been having a great time reading this week, and so I wanted to share the books that I read this week with you, as well as what I am currently reading right now and what I want to read next week. So let's get started with the first book that I completed this week, which was Florence and Giles by John Harding. This is a quiet but really well written story about these children who are living in your typical Gothic manor house in the countryside, and they are threatened by this very menacing feeling looking governess who seems to have a plan to do something to them. So this is the kind of book that I wish I had read maybe 10 years ago, because I feel like I would have loved it. So I really liked this now as a more mature reader. I really liked it. In the end, I gave it 3 stars because I found it very chilling and quietly menacing and suspenseful, and the ending was, the climax was really gruesome and very action packed, and I was very very compelled, especially during the ending. So I really liked those aspects, but I did find it a little bit simple. My other sort of problem with it is that there's a mystery at the core of what's going on in this book, and the mystery is sort of resolved at the end, but it's not really solved in a satisfying enough way, at least for me. So the ending was sort of open ended and ambiguous, but I am willing to forgive that because the book was very well told. It was, in terms of the language, it was really beautifully written. I really cared for the characters, and I thought it was very entertaining, just very, very readable, very compelling to read, very engrossing. So I gave it 3 stars. It's a good read. Then I read something very complex, the opposite of simple, which was Wolf Hall by Hilary Mantel. This is a very important read. If you've been around in BookTube, you will know that this is a staple for many people's channels. This is a book that people feel very strongly about, whether positively or negatively. So, this book is the story of Thomas Cromwell in the 16th century and how he makes his way up in British society. So, he is born in a very, very low uh, social class status, and he actually experiences abuse as a child and as a teenager, and then he runs away from home and he starts making his way through life. And so he's a very interesting character, and he's sort of an anti-hero, and he grows up to be the chief advisor, I guess you would say, like the right hand man to the king, who was this character called Henry VIII. Now, I have to say, this book was very foreign to me. Like, everything in this book felt new to me because I had no idea that any of this existed. I was not aware of any of this in terms of the history. I didn't really have a very good education in history, and also I am Mexican, so I don't know if my education was just very poor in regarding English history or what, but I had no idea about any of this. So reading this was like, in a way, reading fantasy, like a fantasy novel. It could have been made up. If I didn't know that this was something that really happened, I would struggle to believe it because it's very interesting, and you can see why people are so fascinated by these characters and by this whole story of the Tudors. I think is the name, the Tudors. So I think that even though this book felt very, very confusing to me at times and very frustrating at times because I really didn't understand what was happening and who were these people, I had no background, no prior knowledge of any of this. I had never heard of a Henry VIII or a Thomas Cromwell or Boleyn, what's her name? Anne Boleyn. I had never heard of these people. So this was completely new to me. But I really enjoyed learning about them, and I really liked um, that I could feel that I wasn't in on the joke. I really enjoyed feeling excluded from uh, common knowledge, and that actually made me feel more interested in the story because I really want to know what happened to these characters. And I know that it's sort of ridiculous, really, because I could go on Google or Wikipedia and just Google what happened to Henry VIII, what happened to Anne Boleyn, what happened to Thomas Cromwell, and I could just get the facts because it's history. But I don't know it, and I don't want to spoil the fun. So I'm not going to do any research. So this book, reading Wolf Hall, was very complicated because the language is very complex and sort of hard to follow sometimes. Also, English is my second language, and so even though I really enjoy reading in English, it's my favorite language to read in. It's not as easy as Spanish to me, and so it took me a while to really understand what was going on, and on top of that, it just felt very confusing sometimes. Nevertheless, this is a book that I really loved reading because it was frustrating, but character building. It was confusing and frustrating in the way that a good book is. It was confusing enough and frustrating enough so that I could feel that Hilary Mantel is a freaking master of what she's doing. So I really felt like I could trust her, but I also felt like she was trusting me as a reader. And I really loved that. I really value and appreciate deeply reading a book where the author is not spoon feeding you information or being condescending or just giving you everything. I really enjoy books like this, frustrating as they may sometimes be, that really make you work and that really make you feel that you earn your enjoyment. So I'm not gonna lie, sometimes it felt a little bit like a chore to get through some passages, but there were some other passages in the book that were absolutely amazing, breathtakingly beautiful. Her language, complicated as it is ridiculously gorgeous, and I really, really liked her turn of phrase. So I'm really excited to continue reading this. It's weird. It's an experience that uh, was sort of divided for me. I mean, while I was reading the book, there was like a constant oscillation between moments of joy and elation and feeling so delighted, but then moments of feeling completely lost and stupid. So it was just a roller coaster of an experience. It was very intense. And also, I want to say that this is a kind of book that I really like because it represents what the power of BookTube can do for you. This is a book that I don't know if I would have finished reading if it hadn't been for BookTube. I think maybe I could have DNF'd it if it hadn't been for BookTube and for all the people out there, for you watching, and all the people that have encouraged me to read this, and all the people whose love for Wolf Hall made me aware of how, if I pushed myself and read this book, I would be highly rewarded, and I was. So I enjoyed it very much. It's a book that I feel very strongly about, and I have been talking to everybody about it. I gave it a temporary 4-star rating, which I feel very confused about. I think confused is a very a very representative word for me regarding Wolf Hall right now. Um, but I'm gonna wait until I finish reading the trilogy to really reevaluate my rating. So that was Wolf Hall, which was probably the most complicated book that I have read in a long time. So after that, I wanted to read something that was very enjoyable and somewhat of a palate cleanser. And so I decided to read The Hound of the Baskervilles by by Sherlock Holmes. No, by Arthur Conan Doyle, which is a Sherlock Holmes novel that I hadn't read. I am slowly making my way through the complete annotated Sherlock Holmes in this beautiful edition by, well, Arthur Conan Doyle, but annotated and put together by Leslie S. Klinger. It's a beautiful edition. It has illustrations, it has footnotes, it has history, it has everything that you want in your Sherlock Holmes. And the naked hardback is beautiful, but it also comes with a dust jacket, which is also pretty neat. And so, The Hound of the Baskervilles is probably my favorite Sherlock Holmes story so far that I have read. I haven't read a lot, but this has to be my favorite so far. I am really enjoying being in the company of these characters, especially Sherlock has a very unique voice that I really enjoy. He's sort of pretentious and quirky, but he's also down to earth, and he's a wonderful character. I really connect with his voice, and he's also hilarious. I really like reading the Sherlock Holmes stories because I always feel so joyful and so delighted afterwards. They feel very warm to me. So this particular story, The Hound of the Baskervilles, is very complicated and convoluted. There's mystery upon mystery upon mystery. It's very complicated, and I am not even sure that I am following everything that's going on. But it's so wonderful to read. It's very entertaining, very fast paced, and I really like how atmospheric and creepy it is. So I'm really interested in finding out what happens, and I'm probably going to finish it tonight so that tomorrow morning I can start Bring Up the Bodies by Hilary Mantel, which is book 2 in the Thomas Cromwell trilogy. This is more focused, as I understand it, on the character of Anne Boleyn, who is the current wife to Henry, what is it, Henry the Eighth, yeah. And so that character, Anne Boleyn, is a character that I was fascinated by in Wolf Hall. So I'm really interested and sort of afraid for her because I feel like things are not looking good for her. And again, I am very tempted to go on Wikipedia and find out what happened to all of these characters, but I don't want to spoil the fun. So I'm going to read that. And also, I want to start reading Ohio by Stephen Markley. This has been highly recommended by Leo from A Little Book Life, one of my booktube buddies and soulmates, I dare say. And he has been raving about this, and also Rick from the channel Rick McDonald, I want to say. He changed the name of his channel for a while, and so I'm sort of mixed up. But anyway, our Canadian Rick friend read this very recently, and over it in Instagram, he was raving about it. So I really feel very strongly about this book. I really want to read it. So those are the books, and I want to know about you. What did you read? What are you reading? What are you planning on reading? Please let me know. I am here for all of it. Thanks for watching.